Live and in color from the NBC News radio broadcasting studios of KCAA, 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, and 106.5 FM, located in beautiful Southern California, and in parallel from the Turfs Up radio studio in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Thanks for tuning in to the Water Zone show this evening.
Hey, pleasant good afternoon and good evening, good morning, wherever you are in this wonderful world. Welcome to the Water Zone. I'm your host, Rob Starr, along with the next best host I got, Mr. Chris Davey. And Mr. Davey, how are you doing today?
Pretty good. Ready for the next best thing you've got. Who's the first best one you got? I mean, is there something I should know, Robert?
No, not at all. I can't find any more words in the dictionary that can describe you. You're just wonderful.
Well, you're very kind indeed. Right back at you. Dude, we are getting some Phoenix weather here this coming weekend. It's going to be in the mid-90s tomorrow.
Oh, it's 102 here today.
Oh, you good luck with that.
It's going up to 104 this weekend. So anyway, we're enjoying that. And I heard you're on a hunting expedition.
I was. So, this spring is when our friends, our hairy friends, the gophers, come out, and they are absolutely going crazy in my backyard.
They're ruining your nice, beautiful landscape yard.
They are indeed. And yeah, they are indeed. And it's, it's got me is curling my what. So
well, I think we have a special guest coming on after the break, and she's with Kellogg's Garden Products, and maybe she can help you out with some things to do about it, or what kind of soil you could use to do something about it. I don't know. We'll get to that when it comes, but it's going to be interesting. We also have Miss Chris Austin, who's the purveyor of Maven's Notebook. Chris, how are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing great. Doing great. And I got a solution for your gopher problem there, Chris Davey.
All right. Well, spill the beans.
In Southern California, we have these gopher snakes. So what you need to do is you need to go out to your Little League field, wherever it is, and wait for one of those things to pop out, take it home, and stick it in your garden. Send it down one of those holes. You won't have that problem anymore.
I'm sure
now you'll have a snake on your property. That could be other problems, but the gophers will be gone.
I can't imagine what his wife would say.
Where do I keep it overnight? I mean, that's the thing.
Yeah, we're doing great up here in Northern California. It's a nice toasty 96 degrees, so it's hot. Going to be hot this weekend too. So. Yay! Oh joy!
Well, you got some pretty decent, really good articles in your segments today, in your blog, and
gosh, so much been going on. Never a dull moment in California water.
No. So they're saying why is California heating up and all the rivers are staying ice cold?
Because the rivers come from snow melt.
I know.
And they're melted snow. But while you ask that question, it's always a good time to point out that, yes, the rivers are running very cold. They're running very fast. We're having a big snow melt right now. So, as always, when you go out to the rivers can be a dangerous place. It can be a beautiful place, but it can be a little dangerous, especially if you have kids. So, we're still every year the stories start, and we've already lost some people in the rivers already this year. So be careful out there, folks. And if you have kids and you're going to the river, make sure you put a life jacket on them. And you need to not sit in your beach chair while they're out in the water, because those currents come and sweep them away. And even with a life jacket, it's a very bad situation. So,
well, they'll stay afloat, but they'll be 3 miles away from you when you go look for them. So.
Yeah. So be careful out there, folks, because it's rivers are great places to recreate on, but be careful; they can be dangerous too. So that's my PSA for the day. While things are heating up, outside the temperature, they're certainly heating up in the world of the Delta tunnels too. And everything kind of got kicked off to a great start this week when the Legislative Analyst Office, or the LAO, which is the nonpartisan people who look at policies that, in legislation that's being introduced, and they look at the ramifications, and they are like, well, this whole idea of fast tracking the tunnels, you really need to consider that very carefully. And they say since none of these items have budget implications, they don't need to be passed via a budget trailer bill. Now, that's the reason why people want to, or generally that's why people want to do these budget trailer bills, both on the state level and on the national level, because you're sticking pieces of legislation that probably wouldn't pass otherwise into a larger piece of legislation that must pass, and that's how people kind of get roped into things. And that happens, it happens on the state level here in California as much as it happens on the federal level. So we'll see what's going to happen. I listened to an interesting meeting at Metropolitan Water District last Tuesday, and they were talking about these budget trailer bills that were, the governor's trying to put through, that they're largely supportive of, at least those that pertain to the Delta Conveyance Project or the Delta Tunnels. But really the concern is Newsom's got about 2 years left, and they're trying to get the permitting and everything done by the middle of next year so the project is ready to go, because if it's mired down and it's not progressing, and who knows what the next governor is going to do. We know the governor's not going to be Newsom. He's terming out. So who's going to come in, and what will be their take on this project? Who knows? but I think that it's getting to the point where either they're going to do it or they're not going to do it. And if they don't do it, I think the project will probably be dead. That's my prediction, because I think that we've wrestled with this infrastructure project for so long. The whole time I've been here, the whole time I've been doing water news has been one form of the Delta Tunnel or not. So, I think it's gone across 3 governors now. I don't think it's going to go for another 4. So, we'll have to see what happens here. But so that's kind of where we're at with the Delta tunnels. A lot of strong opposition to these budget trailer bills. It's a way to get around the public process, although it's not as it's still attracting quite a bit of attention, but that's generally the goal. And I think when you have large-scale controversial projects, you need to follow the rules. That would be my opinion, but not a position, because I don't ever take a position. So if that sounded like a position, you heard it wrong. But
no, the only position is you want to listen, and you'll understand that better. But you're right. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, I was raised to follow the rules, and if you follow the rules, generally you're supposed to have a good outcome, and that's kind of the way I look at it. So follow the rules.
And that's your position, and you're sticking to it.
Yeah.
Mr. Davey, what do you got on your mind?
Oh, I got a couple of things. So first of all, Chris, I was going to ask you about, we were talking about supply allocations a couple of weeks ago, and I was reading yesterday that some of those, at least for contractors in the South, right? Sacramento, San Joaquin, and South,
what they call south of Delta. Yeah, so that's the San Joaquin Valley. Yeah.
Yeah, but the juxtaposition to that this morning when I open it out, the first thing I see on there is drought causes significant challenges to California farmers.
Yeah, duh.
They seem like polar objectives to me. So what's your take?
you know, water issues are always there, going to be there for the farmers as they are really. I mean, here we go, headed in, to another hot, dry season. We'll see see how things play out. The Bureau of Reclamation did raise the water allocations for the Central Valley project a meager 5%, pretty much, and that's pretty small. And this is considering that Lake Shasta, which is where this water would come from, is full. So these people are kind of saying, why do you have that full reservoir, and why are you not sending your water to me? And they want to have more. Now, there is some requirements that will be there for water, for quote unquote environmental purposes. A lot of it will go. Some water will get released to maintain fresh water in the delta, which has to be released. So there's a lot of things, a lot of demands on the water, and it's another hot year, and it's not easy to get things, across the delta. So they're not happy about it, and they want more infrastructure built so that they can get more water. So we'll see how that works. Things are changing, and we got this snowpack that was kind of all right, average, not so. It wasn't 100% necessarily, but in some areas it was less, but it was all right. But now it's melting faster, and so melting faster means it's going to dry out here pretty soon and pretty fast. And when it dries out, then we get to enjoy wildfire weather. So just fun. Yes, in this extra hot summer.
Yeah, it's coming soon. Are there any updates you can give us on the water infrastructure improvements we were talking about a few? I know I read on Maven's notebook that some upgrades to Lake Oroville are happening, and what else?
Well, I'm trying to think back. We've been really focused on trying to see Sites Reservoir move forward. Yeah. They optimistically think that they could have a decision from the Water Board in the fall, and they would be looking to start, construction maybe as soon as 2027. There's lots of people signed up for that project, and some people even on a waiting list, to see if they've sold all the water in the reservoir, so to speak. So I think that project has a lot of momentum, as do all California projects. It does have its critics. The environmentalists don't think that it's going to, they don't think there's going to be water to fill the reservoir. They're concerned about the impacts of drawing more water from the Sacramento River. So they are expressing those concerns, and tribes are involved with, and have their concerns about the project. But the project itself, it's kind of the project that the scientists have been saying we need to build, one that can catch some water on the valley floor, a dam that's a reservoir that's located below what we call the rim dams, where a lot of the water that falls in the Central Valley, there's no dam to catch it. So this reservoir is off stream, so when those flows are coming down the Sacramento River, when we have a lot of rain, they're going to pump some of that water up to the reservoir. So they'll be grabbing the water in times when it's really coming down. And that actually happens, a couple times a year generally. And even in a dry drought year, we can have one or two storms come through that really put out a lot of water. So it's about being ready to capture that water when it's available, when those big storms come.
Yeah, there was an article you wrote at the beginning of the month. They had like an open house up there, or an open reservoir, or whatever. The site's project management team brought several water agencies from over the state and kind of had tours and things like that. You remember that?
Yeah. They're always out trying to sell things or, promote the project. But yeah, I think that project's got a lot of momentum. On the other hand, we have this reservoir outside of the Silicon Valley, the Pacheco Dam project, and that one it has incurred a lot of costly delays. They in the midst of doing some geotechnical investigations, they found that the location they had proposed was on an earthquake fault, so they had to move to another location, which has some different impacts. And and this reservoir wouldn't even start construction till maybe 2029 at the earliest. And it's a project that was approved for the Water Storage Investment Program, or the state funds to help with the construction. But they can't even say when they would make the decision on whether they're going to go with the project or not. Excuse me. That doesn't make the people at the Water Commission too happy, because they know, the visitors or the voters passed this project in, I believe it was like 2014. And so, 10 years later, 20% of the funds are sort of slated for this project, and they can't even say when they would vote to do that project. So,
right.
The commissioners are very conscious that there could be other projects out there that could move forward if they just had money. And here's one that's hanging on to money, and it may not move forward. There's a lot of opposition, and it's very expensive. So, however, we're talking about the Silicon Valley, so if there's anyone that could afford pricey water, it would probably be the Silicon Valley.
Well, speaking of dams, I also read in your blogs about the Pacific Gas and Electric customers, that they're all getting fired up about a $532 million bill for removing a dam.
Well, that's the Potter Valley project, which is this next dam removal that they're hoping to accomplish. That Hal Trout and others are behind removing these two dams. This is a little bit harder than the Klamath dams in that this does really affect some water supply over to the Sonoma Valley, and it's a significant amount of water, and they have a plan for how they're going to respond to that and make up that water, but there are those in the community that don't feel very solid about that. And at the same time, the folks that are upstream around the dam in Lake Pillsbury and Lake County like their lake, and they don't want to see their lake go away. And the power plant at Potter Valley is not a very good one. It's not a very highly productive power plant. So PG&E is not exactly chomping at the bit to upgrade this. In fact, it's probably a big motivating factor for why they're willing to give it up, so easily in a sense.
Well, so they pass the bill over to their customers.
Well, but you kind of, somebody's got to pay for that. I mean, if they're not going to take it out, then they would have to rebuild it, refurbish it, and they get charged for that too. So I mean, because this is what you do, folks. Rates your rates pay for these maintenance. So
what happens if they empty it but just leave the structure?
Well, it's what it is it's not on a stream, or if it's on a stream, it's not a very consequential one. But there is a tunnel that brings water over from the Eel River to the Potter Valley plant. I think that's the source for the hydroelectric power, would be the water coming through the tunnel. It drops down through the plant, and then that water then goes on to the Sonoma Valley. So it's taking water from Eel River and bringing it through a mountain. So it's I don't know if you can. I don't think you can just open it up and just let the water continue to come through the tunnel. And I mean, there has to be some kind of control on that tunnel when it's open and when it's not. That's part of this project. So it can't really just be abandoned. Oh. It has to be, perhaps they may not have to demolish the structure, but they're going to have to deal with that tunnel and the water and the diversion. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, what about, I also read something really interesting. I think Chris Davey would be interested in, where they're scaling the floodplain to get fish food for the salmon.
Oh, yes. Floodplain restoration is a big deal, especially in the Sacramento Valley, but they're trying to do it wherever they can. By flooding the fields, all kinds of bugs and fish food are created. It's actually quite fascinating. It comes from nothing, just water.
But they still have the salmon restriction going now, so but Chris Davey can't go out fishing anymore.
Oh, but
they changed it.
Oh, did they?
There's 2 days open for recreational fishing. Sure. I believe it's June 7th and 8th coming up.
Yeah.
And
it's next month.
Yeah, and they're only letting you have 7,000 fish total. So, and I guess if they don't hit the 7,000 in June, then they might open it up later on. And there's a couple of other dates that it'll be open for recreational fishing, but no commercial salmon fishing this year. Again, for the third year in a row.
Commercial, yeah.
Yeah, commercial, yeah, which is sad.
Yeah, sport fishing is good though. But limited tags available and
limited dates. Yeah.
Well, Chris, you got to find some other places to go.
Not to worry, buddy. I'm ready.
Yeah, right. I know you are. Well, Chris, we appreciate, as I always say every week, thanks for coming on the show and giving us an upside what's happening in the world of water in California. And for our listeners, you can get as smart as we are, because we get it from her. You go to mavensnotebook.com and get all the data that you want on what's going on in California in the water business, and it's amazing. Again, she doesn't get any sleep. I don't know how she puts out this information every single day, and we get it first thing in the morning when we turn on our PCs, and it's a great way to keep up with what's happening even behind the scenes. And if you really prefer, you can become a sponsor of that. Make a small donation. It's 501c3. Is that correct, Chris?
Yes, fully tax deductible if you make a donation.
Yep. Go to do that. That's a great thing to do. And Chris, we love you, and we always want you back. So thank you very much, and you go have a good week.
And you too. Talk to you all next week, folks.
Have a great week, Chris.
Yep. All right, we're going to take a little break and for our commercials, and then we'll be right back with a featured guest that we're all going to be excited about. So stick around. We'll be right back.
KCAA. Water is one of the biggest expenses for communities, HOAs, universities, golf courses, and resorts. So keeping those costs under control, especially when rates are increasing while water supplies are being reduced, are often essential to a customer's survival. Managing water requires multiple skills, which is why it's been complicated and difficult until now. AquaTrack brings multiple skills and technologies together to help large system users conserve outdoor water and improve the health of their landscapes. AquaTrack's professionals are certified landscape water managers and certified landscape irrigation auditors. The company offers audit services, upgrade advice, technical expertise, and water use monitoring. We already manage irrigation water for the largest homeowner associations in Arizona, and we're prepared to bring our knowledge and experience to help others, including landscapers and designers. Give us a call and hear how AquaTrack saved one HOA some 430 million gallons of water and $200,000 in annual water expenses. AquaTrack is Arizona-based, and you can reach us at 623-594-8689. That's 623-594-8689.
One of the most time-saving tools I found for my customers is our app and our e-commerce feature. So customers actually have the ability to view all of their quotes in one place. If you contact your Site One seller, you'll be able to log into your account and see all your quotes in one place. And instead of jumping on the phone or waiting for your seller to call you back, you can approve it right from the website, and it will send a message to your sales rep to get it on order and reserve the material. Customers can learn more about these tools at their Site One branch, from their local seller, from their local CX specialist, and from SiteOne.com or by downloading the Site One app.
Welcome back to the second half of the Water Zone. Everybody's having a good time, and thank you again for tuning in. And we have a very special guest. Her name is Giselle Schoniger, and she is classified as an organic gardening educator, and she's really brilliant, and we're glad to have her on. She works for the Kellogg's Garden Products. So, Giselle, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. Actually, I'm up in Truckee. I'm doing a free planting day, so you're talking about all the snowpack. I'm right where it's all happening, and yep, those rivers are running cold and fierce. It's pretty warm up here, too. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you could be a remote reporter now.
There you go.
Well, we all know who Kellogg's Garden Products are, and I can tell you because I've told the missus and your boss that we love the product. That's all we use. My wife makes sure that any of our landscapers, they have to use Kellogg's stuff, and it's awesome. So we thank you for that. Kind of tell us, maybe for our listening audience who really don't know, and I don't know why somebody wouldn't know if they go to Home Depot or places like that and they see your packages, but maybe explain a little what Kellogg's does.
So actually this year, we started in 1925, so Kellogg is celebrating their centennial 100-year anniversary. They started in Southern California, and we basically take, anything that was once living, any organic matter, animal or plant byproduct. So we use wood, we use rice hulls, we might use coconut core. We have been minimizing our peat moss footprint for years, for about 30 years. But everybody in our industry is looking at peat as we have to find a peat replacement because it's not environmentally friendly. And we take all these materials, all these agricultural byproducts and manures and compost and bat guano and worm castings, and instead of allowing that material to go into the landfill, we compost it and put it back into our soils. And a lot of people may or may not know this. This is how exciting my life is. Today is actually National Learn About Composting Day, and there is a film on YouTube. I know. There's a film on YouTube called The Compost Story, and it's from an organization called Kiss the Ground. So, it's like we're taking waste material and turning it into something, that will grow plants. That, you can take something that's dead, dying, and decomposing, and it's magic. It turns into this life-giving material. So I love what we do. The Kellogg's are wonderful people. We donate. Gosh, I've never heard Kellogg's say no to any denomination of church, boys and girls clubs, thousands of school gardens. We donate all those different materials so that kids can actually learn how to grow food.
Right.
And then, of course, we are in the garden centers, right? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say we partnered up a couple times with the Toro company and Kellogg's for school gardens and things like that, and just unbelievable results. And the kids were happy, and it was a great project that we did. So we do appreciate that. Now, other brands that you sell aside from the Kellogg's brand, or you classify them differently? They're in smaller, I guess, what's the right word I'm looking for? Concierge nurseries and places like that.
Yeah, like garden centers. So we're two brands and two channels of trade. We have, Kellogg's been around for 100 years. So we're everywhere in Southern California. You can find us at the box stores, the big box stores, or the local nursery and garden centers. But we have another brand that's called G&B Organics or Gardner and Bloom Organics, and that is an independent-only brand. So you'll only find that at the local garden center and nursery. And so they're both premium products. The local trade, that consumer really, they want to know all the nuts and bolts. They want to know how everything works. We have lots of different sort of bells and whistles, if you will. We're doing some new things with microalgae in our fertilizers, and that is basically a phytoplankton. It's basically what keeps everything alive in the ocean, and it's a superfood. It's nature's original superfood, and so we're adding that into our fertilizers to feed the native microbes in our soil. So we're kind of making a new paradigm shift. For the last 25 years, we were adding beneficial bacteria and fungi into our fertilizers. And now we're saying, there's a little bit of madness in cultivating all these species of bacteria and fungi and try to keep them alive in a bag in a box. Why don't we put a food source in the fertilizer that will wake up and feed our native microbes? So, we're constantly looking ahead. We're really in this mode of how do we find something that's more regenerative, that actually gives back to the planet. It's been really rewarding to be part of a solution-based company, I have to say. In our industry, we have a lot of people that are in that mode, right? And Kellogg is one of those companies.
Yeah. I know. I'm sorry, Chris. One last thing. I know I've seen photos at Kathy's home, her garden, and it's awesome. And I know Chris uses that too. So, Chris, go ahead, take over.
Oh, thanks, Rob. I didn't mean to cut you off there, but Giselle, welcome to the Water Zone.
Thank you, Chris. Happy to be here.
Great, and congratulations on the 100-year anniversary as well. That's an achievement.
Yeah.
It truly is. They're taking all of us to the Queen Mary, which is very exciting. And, the Kellogg's, Kathy Kellogg is actually, she's been part of if not the founding member, one of the founding members of the whole composting council. And, and just to give it your customers, like in California, through CDFA, California Department of Food and Agriculture, the word compost on a bag of amendment, like a composted bag or an amendment, you can't use that word unless it's a true compost. It literally has to be a cooked down material. It starts at a certain carbon to nitrogen ratio, right? Mm-hmm. Carbon, matter, and so like it's typically about 25 to 1 to 30 to 1, and when it's finished and cooked down, it's 10 to 1. So states everywhere else, they are putting the word compost on a bag of amendment, and it may not fit the true definition of being a true compost. So in California, that law has changed. And who is that good for? It's good for the consumer. We are all of our products are OMRI listed. That stands for the Organic Material Review Institute. And that means that every input, every ingredient that's in our products has to be approved before we can actually add it into our mixes. So all of our products are approved for organic use. And what I do is I basically go to all of our gardens, well, not to all of them, but to a lot of our big hitters or wherever somebody needs my help. and I'll educate them on soil health, why organic versus synthetic. And my background is actually in the use of synthetics. I went to production agricultural school. Everything I learned about was what I call the hard drugs, really, which is more about, and I know I have to be a little careful because we're in an industry that has both, and I recognize and understand that I've been doing this for about 40 years. So there's a place for everything. I do feel that the organic message is so important for the homeowner. And actually the industry. I'd like to see more of the industry wrap its arms around the organic message. I know a lot of people have and are continuing to, but we do still have a long way to go with getting this message out to people that it's really about, if you grow healthy soil, you're going to grow healthy crops, have healthy animals and healthy people, and ultimately a healthier environment. So for 40 years now, I've been working on the organic side of things. But it's been a journey. It's a great industry. People are very generous. I've had many great mentors that have lifted me up, that believed in me, saw things in me. Different scholarships. Our industry is incredible for giving scholarships to students that are promising that, everybody needs a hand up. And so I'm really proud to be part of this industry. I've been working with plants since I was 15. I'm soon to be 64. It's all I've ever done.
I feel the same way, having entered this industry myself in 1978. So, approaching 50 years here in this industry. So congratulations to you. But I got a question for you, because I got to be honest. Sure. I went back, Giselle, and I looked back at the show notes for the last time we had Kathy Kellogg on. And we've had Kathy and Hap both on here. In fact, Rob and I were at Kathy Kellogg's induction into the Green Industry Hall of Fame back a few years ago. And and
I was there too.
Yep. I had a great evening at that. But one of the questions I wanted to ask that I didn't get a chance to ask last time was Kathy when Kathy was on. Is there's a tagline that's on all your stuff, all your bags, and it says "Adding life to your garden." Has that? I think it says gardens, actually plural. But Giselle, is there a story to that, and how long has that tagline been around?
So basically everything we do is about feeding the ecosystem, feeding the life in the soil. So all of our soils and amendments, we compost all of our products, so they're all living organisms. They may be soil in a bag, but they're living, breathing organisms in that bag. They're literally infused with life. And so that's really what we do. The whole organic message, not just an organic message, it's really more of a holistic approach. Mother Nature has it figured out. Yeah. We might be able to, she knows what she's doing. These systems have been in place for many, many years, right? Millions and millions of years. So really, all we're doing is working within Mother Nature's guidelines. Something lives, it dies. There's an organism to eat whatever byproduct. Nature is not a waste producer. She may have waste byproducts, but she's got an organism, she's got her own soldiers to clean everything up. We are the waste producers, right? We're the ones that are using the resources at a faster clip than we should. I mean, we're all still learning. When we see how much we're learning about, storing water and now releasing it, right? Releasing these dams. Or just plant communities, different. If you lived in San Diego, you want to grow all the plants you grew in San Diego when you move to Michigan or Reno. And we know that that's who we are as people. And yet there's so much that we could learn about, pollinator plants or drought-tolerant plants or native plant communities. But often we choose the things that are the water consumers. So I just think as a whole industry and as a society, we're in a deep stage of learning of how to transition back to the way nature intended. While being sophisticated, we can be sophisticated in how we move forward in things, but we really need to mimic what nature is doing.
Yeah, that's been an underpinning of Kellogg for sure. I mean, you've done, you've worked with the USDA as well as community engagement, all that kind of stuff, schools and things. Are you still doing that?
Absolutely. Kathy has been very involved in that. I would say yes. I mean, she's going to be speaking at in Australia for the ag department. Actually, I think she's there now. So she's very involved in the composting message, in the soil message. We donate a lot, not just product, but the Kellogg's donate to things that they believe in, that they want to see supported. They want to see films, just any way of getting the message out to people. The Kellogg's are still very involved in that. And, we're a national brand now. So we've been around for 100 years. We are a national brand with Home Depot across the country. And that's been about 7 years now. And then on the West Coast, we call that our heritage market. And we have mostly, the local garden centers and nurseries. We have the Gardener and Bloom, and then everywhere else we have the Kellogg products. So we're still a growing company. I mean, all puns intended. Every metaphor in life, you start as a seed, and what do you want to do? You want to set deep roots. It's the same for us as it is for nature, right? I mean, you can have a bad storm. It can rip half your branches off, rip your roots up, and you got to figure out a way to sustain and survive yourself. I mean, this life is not for the faint of heart, and neither is this working in this industry. I mean, you got to have some grit. You got to be tough. You got to have passion. These are all passionate people that work in our industry that really care about what they're doing.
Yeah, I see trucks coming on the 10 freeway out this way to Phoenix and stacked with product. In fact, when I was at your place up, I think Ontario, if that's the right city, last time I was there a couple of years ago, I saw these 18-wheeler things driving in and out, just taking tons of that stuff out. It was amazing walking through that place. But let me ask you a question, because some of our guests and listeners want to know. So when you go to the big box stores, you see all kinds of soil amendments, and they're packed outside, and they're usually in the outside of the building. So what happens over time, since they're packaged and it's airtight in these plastic bags and stuff? Does that have I'll call it a shelf life? Because there's organisms in it when you package it. I saw that happen. In fact, she showed me under a microscope. Here, look at the thing. You'll see these little things moving inside. I did that. But
Correct.
What happens when these things are sitting out in the hot sun for a long time in the bags? Does the soil degrade?
No. Okay. So let me answer that question as best I can. So when you see all those pallets and pallets of product out there, so here's what happens when the season's over. So our season's ending soon, right? As soon as it gets hot, nobody wants to garden. So we start composting in August. So we are cooking the material, composting it all through, August, September, October, and we're getting it into the stores as early as we can. Like on the local side, we call it early buys. Because that way we can determine how much product do we have to make, right? We have to have some number that we shoot for. Okay. All of that material that you see at those Home Depots, you want to know why it's sitting there? Because if we didn't have it, that's how much product we move through. A single weekend, when we move through whatever's in that store, that stuff that's sitting out there, it gets filtered through the store within a few weeks.
Wow.
So to answer your question, that product's still perfectly fine. And it stays fine in the pallet if it's still finishing itself off. Maybe it's still cooking a little bit in the bag. Typically, it's already a finished product. It's really when you take it off that pallet and you open the bag. I tell people, when you open that bag, treat it like you paid for it. Close it up if you don't use it. Put it in the shed. Put it in the garage. You really do want it, because over time, as it dries out, I would always, if I had an amendment that I left in the garage and it was there, let's say 8 months, I'd probably fluff in some fresh compost or fresh potting soil or something in that mix and add a little bit of moisture. But it's going to live and it's going to sustain itself. It's when the product dries out completely or it's waterlogged. That's really when product starts to shut down. So it's kind of a long answer, but
no, that's good.
I would say when it's
No, our listeners won't want to hear stuff like that. But Kathy used to come on, and and do a question and answer to take calls from people, and then they wrote into us, and then we'd have her on and read the questions and so forth. And very interesting. I mean, you guys, it's not that you just make product; it's how you educate your public outreach. It's amazing, and things that you're doing. How did you decide that this is the industry you wanted to come to?
You know, I feel like I'm a lucky person. So my parents are immigrants from Europe. My mother was one of these amazing gardeners. Well, she's in hospice right now. I still have my mother. She's 93.
Wow.
And she would take a stick, what I thought was a stick. It was a cutting, and she'd put it in the ground, and she would, 6 months later, we'd have a rose bush there. And I used to think my mom was magic. And literally, I would think by 11 or 12, I knew I wanted to work with plants. And I went to Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo. It was an impacted program, and I remember going there, and the dean of the School of Ag said to me, "It's an impacted program, And I was like, "Yeah, okay." I said, "What does that mean?" He goes, "Well, it's really hard to get into." And I said, "Well, sir, this is where I'm going to school." He kind of looked at me like I was a little tenacious, but it is where I went to school, and I was president of the Ornamental Horticulture Club at the time. And at the time, horticulture, ornamental horticulture, it can't just be ornamentation. It can't just be beautiful. It has to be functional, sustainable, environmental, right? It has to be way more than just beautiful. And at that time, horticulture was huge. I mean, it's had this major resurgence since COVID, right? We have all this young generation coming in that now have this love affair with plants, just the same way that I did. So how I got into the industry. So I met a gentleman. He owned a company called Whitney Farms. I met him at a trade show, and he hounded me for 6 months to work for him. And I was like, "Sir, I don't want to be on the road. What part of this are you not getting?" And he's like, "If you could have 5 things, what would they be?" And I rattled off 5 things. And he said, "When can you start?" And I thought, well, I'll clean up my language. And I thought, dang, I did not ask for enough money. And that was 30 years ago. And so I've been blessed with mentors, people that saw this thing, this passion, and they wanted me to be a part of their team. So I worked for Whitney Farms, and then I came to Kellogg's 25 years ago, and the brands that I built there was a brand called Dr. Earth. We helped him. We made him a millionaire, and he went off and he became his own, he's his own brand. And then now I educate Gardner and Bloom and Kellogg, and I've been doing that, like I said, for about 24, 25 years.
It's
been a journey.
No, I was going to say, I asked him years ago, like 8, 9 years ago, and I got some PR guy that he had to come on the show, and didn't want to do it. I don't know why. I don't know if he was afraid to talk. Like we're talking to you now, we don't ask any secret questions or anything, but he didn't want to do that. I just thought that was kind of strange.
Yeah, and he could have been busy. But it's been a great ride, I have to say. I taught gardening as a form of therapy. That really changed my life. I've pretty much done, every time I try to get out of horticulture, I just take another avenue. I worked for the Department of Agriculture. I feel like there's so much you can do in this industry that I really encourage young students that are getting into, agriculture or learning about plants or ag or, whatever it is, horticulture. It's a rewarding career. It truly is. It's not for the faint of heart at all. You got to be tough, but there's something life affirming. You asked that question about, putting life into. There's something life affirming about making a difference on the planet, and I feel like soil is one of those. We finally recognize that soil is what sustains soil and water and air. It's what sustains us. If we just continue to destroy the soil, we basically destroy the futures that we all have. So it's been a really great experience.
You must know Karen Ross, then.
I'm not sure.
She's head of ag.
Recognize Ron.
But you and Chris have something in common.
Well, I was going to mention that, Rob. But Giselle, about your experience at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. I'm sorry about that. I actually went to the real Cal Poly in Pomona.
So did my nephew. He studied, I think, chemical engineering or something. You know what? Growing up in San Luis Obispo, I tell you what. I mean, I was late. I went at 21. I actually helped save the old house. It's at the very end of Madonna Road. It's called the Madonna Out. Yeah, it's an old farmhouse. And I helped save that old farmhouse. I would go to the city council and to the mayor, and I said, gosh, if you travel the world and look at, my family's from Germany, and I'd say you'd see a 1,000-year-old building, and right next to it you see a brand new shopping center. Why does our architecture blow in the wind after 100 years? Like, we don't value it. Well, now it's the focal point. Because you've all heard of the Madonna Inn, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
This house, dead ends Madonna Road.
Yeah, it's right at the end of it.
18 years. Yeah, it's an old red and white farmhouse, and I wouldn't have traded my education. Actually, I had so much fun, and it was such a great experience that it's literally what's gotten me through these 30 years, was the fact that I had such a great experience. I mostly put myself through college. I started a business at 19 in San Diego, an interior landscape company, and I sold it at 21 to go to college. And it was the best decision I could have made. I feel like I grew in ways that I think going to school, may not be for everybody. I think I would have been successful had I not gone to school, because I think when you're a kid of immigrants, there's something that drives you. Probably fear a little bit. But I'm just a very driven person, and I feel like it's been a great choice for me. And I mean, most of the people that you meet in this industry are incredibly kind and good people. People give back to this industry. Agreed. Don't you feel, Chris? Don't you feel like there's been a lot of mentoring going on? Yeah.
Yeah, agree, 100%, yes.
Well, you certainly have the passion. You can hear it in your voice and things. So when you go out and do these presentations, you get a lot of questions like from, I'll call it the people who really care about organic stuff, that they ask you, what's the difference between this mix versus this mix and this mix? Because you make a plethora of different versions of what you sell.
Oh,
and that's important. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of break it down and help people understand what makes the most sense for them in their garden. Like raised beds, let's say. Mm-hmm. Everybody's doing raised beds. When I started working with seniors at the last stages of life, we had raised beds because people were in a walker and a wheelchair. Now we do it so somebody doesn't have to deal with their native soil. And, just learning the tricks of how to blend crops, right? I'm a blender, so I'm going to mix it up. I'm going to mix a lot of things up before I plant. I'm going to always put my organic fertilizer right in the planting hole. It's non-burning, right? I'm going to get all that good stuff right at the root zone, and I'm going to make sure that I use the products that are going to push roots first. First, I want roots, right? I don't want to push foliage right away. I want to help that plant get established. So, plants need a sit-down meal. They need the granular meal, right? And then they need their juice. They need their liquid meal. So they need the amendment, the organic fertilizer, and then the organic liquid. And, some people don't know about timing. And they think, oh, well, I did all that last year. You mean I have to do it again this year? It's like, yes. We need to sustain our gardens. We're a garden. Like, I think that's the biggest takeaway that I took from teaching gardening as a form of therapy, was looking at the people that drank whiskey and smoked cigars and they lived to be 100 years old. And, there were certain people that took such good care of themselves as a garden, and often, often they were successful, and other times, life had different plans for them. So, it's a great teacher.
You also talk about adding bugs to the garden?
Well, we have a beneficial bug company.
Yeah, I know.
Yes, thank you for that. So, Kellogg, we own a company called Organic Control. It's one of our sister companies. And so we sell, everything from, of course, everybody loves lace bugs, right? But we sell green lace wings that eat probably 50 times more than the ladybugs do. We sell different types of nematodes and things that are going to eat all the grubs in the soil. We sell earthworms. So it's really an interesting business to be a part of. I think that beneficial bugs takes a lot more work than people can imagine.
You're right. But we got to give up. We got to give up time to NBC. This is our news hour in about less than 30 seconds.
No problem.
We appreciate that. How can people go to your website?
KelloggGarden.com, www.KelloggGarden.com, 3 G's in the middle. Thank you so much for this. It's been a delight.
Well, hold on when we sign off, and we'll talk to you. Everybody, you have a great week, and one thing that Chris and I tell everybody, please help keep our planet blue. Because if you want green, you got to have the blue. Good night, everybody. Talk to you next week. Have a good weekend.
KCA